They're all copies, okay? And let's say you find 4 different copies. And in the first copy, you see an error right here. And then another copy, there's another error right there. In the third copy, there's another error right there. And in the fourth copy, there's an error right there. Can you reconstruct the original?
Yes.
Yes. And that's what scholars do. So yes, sometimes scribe made mistakes, but in virtually all cases, we know what the mistake was, and we can correct it by comparing it with other documents. Now, you might say, why wouldn't God just, if this is true, why wouldn't he just maintain the original? If I had the original, what could I do to it? I could alter it, right? But if you had a copy, 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 and I had a copy, and I changed my copy, is everyone going to know who changed their copy? Yeah, because when you get all your copies together and compare it to mine, you go, Turek, you heretic, why'd you do that? Right? So by not preserving the original, you actually are able to preserve the original better.
This is chapter 3, verse 146. So this is not a translation, folks. These are both Arabic. All right? 2 different examples of one verse in 2 different Qurans, one in Warsh and one in Hafs. So that's these 2 books I have up here at the front. Okay? On the left side, you have Hafs, which is the word qatala, means to fight. And on the right side, you have kutila, which means we're killed. So in the English translation of this Arabic word, verse, how many a prophet fought with whom were many worshippers of the Lord? On the Warsh it says, how many a prophet were killed with whom were many worshippers of the Lord? What have they done? They have put a dhamma in where the fatha was, and they have put a kasra where the other fatha was. So that's all they did was change 2 vowels around, and look at, you have now fought versus kill. How does that change the verse? Well, if you're a prophet, I like to rather fight rather than be killed, wouldn't you think? So you can see this changes whether or not the prophet lives or not. Here's another example. Here you have slaves on the left versus in the presence of God. Are you slaves or are you in the presence of God? And are you females who are in the presence of God? Well, you can see just by changing 2 different letters here, you get a completely different meaning on that. I won't go into that because that has 3 different problems here. Here you have Ihsan on the left, and you have Husnan. One is doing good, the other is beauty. Translation, and we have enjoined on man doing good to his parents. On the right side, we have enjoined on man beauty. Now, if I'm a parent and I have 3 sons, do we want our sons to do good or to be beautiful? I'd rather they be good rather than good looking. And then we'll end with this one here, 98.6. Here you have between the Warsh and the Hafs, al-barayati versus al-bara'ati. One means creatures. That means creatures who are in hell. And look who they are. Those are the people of the scripture. That's us and the polytheists. Are we creatures in hell or are we innocent? Now there's a theological problem and a doctrinal problem. Do you see that? Just by changing one of the letters, you change the complete doctrine. Because are we creatures in hell because of what we done, or are we innocent in hell? And if we're innocent, what are we doing in hell?
That the standard narrative,
You'll finish.
as holds, that the standard narrative,
You'll finish.
as holds. This is a topic that when you're the beginning student of knowledge, you're like, what is all of this going on? Here? When you go a little bit more, you learn to simply memorize what your teachers say and regurgitate it out. And you don't fully comprehend. When you do a deep dive is when things get very, very awkward. That the standard narrative,
You'll finish.
as holds, that the standard narrative,
You'll finish.
as holds. And I don't think it is wise to bring it up. Why didn't I say it? Because it should not be said in public. I don't want to get into that issue. I don't even want to be explicit. It should only be discussed amongst those who are familiar with this science. It should never be brought up in public. This is not something you discuss amongst the masses,